Hey, this is driver 88. Now, usually we review a whole bunch of relatively expensive European super and sports cars on this channel. But I wanted to try something a little bit different today because there is an enormous change happening in the Australian automotive market at the moment. This is a Chery Omoda 5, and it reminds me very much of 25 years ago when my grandparents bought an apple green Hyundai XL, a sort of car that a lot of people laughed at, as they usually laughed at Hyundais and Kias, because it was cheap and cheerful. Fast forward 25 years from then, and obviously those two brands are quite well revered and sell incredibly well here in Australia. And I feel like these Chinese cars, which are now swamping the market and selling really quite well because of their affordable prices, years from now they may own the entire Australian market, because 200,000 Chinese made cars were sold here in Australia, and the country itself is the largest exporter of vehicles, even more than Japan. 5.2 million cars are exported from China now. That's a 500% increase from just 10 years ago. So I'm going to do a quick review of this $31,000 Chery Omoda, and something interesting to note, 10 more Chinese brands are going to be coming to the market over the next few years, and there's over 100 automotive brands in China at the moment. And this particular one, the Chery, along with the well-selling here, the MG, is owned by the Chinese Communist Party, which is quite interesting, along with a number of other brands like Chang'an and Hongqi and Dongfeng and Maxus and stuff. All sorts of other interesting cars are coming to this market and selling quite well. So let's do a review, keeping in mind that this is a $31,000 compact SUV, which is going to suit lots of Australians, and lots of businesses I think are going to buy these, have them on arrangements for their workers and things like that, and see how good it is. Is it crap? Is it potentially going to be good years from now? Let's have a look. So what do we think about the looks? It's pretty generic compact SUV. We're sitting relatively high, and we are on 18-inch alloys. This is the BX, the mid-spec, which means that we get a whole bunch of tech, pretty much everything you would need for a sort of family runabout or work runabout to sit in traffic in. Is very much a car. It is relatively light as well, just over 1,400 kilos. We've got a 1.5 litre turbo, which makes 145 horsepower, which sounds like absolutely nothing. We do get 210 newton meters of torque, however, and I think that really shows up in the driving review that's coming up in a second. Yeah, generic sort of front emblem here. It kind of just blends into life and traffic very easily and disappears, which is sometimes what you want for a bit of easy automotive daily drive. What do we think about the quality of this thing? The doors do feel a little bit light. One of our little badges here has had a little bit of a droop under its own weight, which is interesting. Otherwise, the paint quality isn't terrible. The doors feel, I mean, look, I've heard and felt worse for a car for $31,000. So jumping in the Chery, we are greeted with a fully black interior. The seating position you can get relatively low in this car. We have, I'd say, a fairly wide range of harder plastics. There's some things I like, there's some things I don't. We've got adjustable LED lighting in here, which you can change the color. We've got two large 10.25 inch screens. Some things I do like are the placement of your phones. So you've got two 50-watt wireless charging for your phones in a good position. As I said, you've got a fairly decent seating position. What you also have though is a really terrible small area pillbox to see out the rear of the car. I don't know why that is the case. The buttons and things feel pretty decent, honestly, for a $31,000 car. I have to readjust my expectations because I just jumped out of a $400,000 Range Rover SV. Now these seats, I do not like them. They're a little bit too hard and sporty for a mass market car that a whole wide range of people are going to be sitting in and driving for long distances. They're really, I find, a bit too hard. The screens are very clear. However, with this car, we have a couple of pixels which have died, and it's going to take 2 months to get that fixed. So just another little thing that we can talk about that's gone wrong in the 15,000 kilometers that the owner has had this car. I do like the fact that we don't have gloss black here, which, you know, very expensive brands have gloss black here where you scratch it and put finger marks really easily. So that's smart of Chery. We've got this being the BX, the mid-range sort of tier. We've got 8-speaker Sony sound system, which is half decent. And yeah, all round, just really not a bad effort for a car which is very affordable on the interior. Now, starting up the little 1.5 litre turbo, it's very quiet and smooth little guy. She starts to kind of turn into a bit of a sewing machine pretty quickly when you rev the thing up though. Now, we've got all sorts of tech in here that you would probably have got on a Euro prestige car of twice the value not many years ago. You've got lane departure assist, you've got radar cruise, you've got all sorts of things, including this technology here, this driver management system, which is essentially looking at your face the entire time. And if you put your finger over it while you're driving too long, it'll say that the DMS has been obscured, and that if you don't allow the DMS to look at you while you drive, your social credit score will be lowered. So that's an interesting feature in this car. So the rear seats. I am 180 centimeters, and really, given that even though this has a sloping back, my head is not touching the roof, and I have quite an amount of knee space. Yes, these seats, like the front seats, are a little bit hard. The ground is a little bit hard, but what we also don't have is a massive transmission tunnel, this being front wheel drive. And you've got quite decent visibility in the rear seats. Doesn't give you much lumbar support, but I think perfectly acceptable for what this car is. Now, boot space and having a spare tire are quite important in this segment. The rear is relatively heavy, and we have 325 litres of space with this shelf down, which is not that big for the segment. We do have a space saver tire under here though, which I think is quite important. And we get an electric tailgate in the higher spec Chery. So as we start up, as I said before, the visibility is quite decent in this car, besides directly at the back of it. But at the front and sides, your pillars are not very obstructive to your view. What I do like is the rear vision camera. I can tell you it's much better than some Toyotas, which cost 20 to 25% more expensive. Now, I thought it'd be interesting to drive this car a little bit on some dirt road, and this car is pretty stiffly sprung for a car which is really not supposed to have any sportiness about it. We've got a front wheel drive, tiny little engine in the engine bay, and I am really quite surprised by the performance. It's not great, obviously, over 100 kilometers per hour, but that 0 to 60 kilometers, the turbo just gets up and going, and you sort of, it's really not that bad. And I think that's because the car is really quite light, even though it's a subcompact or compact SUV. And the steering also, like most cars that are just transport, is very, very light, and it will suit pretty much anyone. I do, like I said, have a bit of a problem with these hard seats. The sound system, not too bad. But with driving, there's not a huge amount of body roll, even though it's a huge car. And yeah, look, it's shuddering a fair bit with this sort of dirt road, and this is not even a bad dirt road compared to some of the other ones you've seen. And roads here in Australia, particularly Victoria, are horrendously bad from a first world perspective. There's potholes and undulations and problems everywhere, and that's why I think a lot of brands, and I have heard that some Chinese brands, well, apparently I think MG cars as well, are often tuned for a poorer road service in Australia if they're sold in Australia. These cars are sold in left-hand drive as well as right-hand drive. And I can see why these things, as well as MGs, are selling quite well. We've also, of course, got BYD here, which apparently is mostly private owned company. Is it NIO is coming to Australia? I think, you know, only a few years from now, Chinese built cars will be the #1 sold car in Australia. I have almost no doubt within 5 years, because cars and inflation, things have gotten so expensive that people are looking for a deal. And when you can throw enormous amounts of money at huge production levels and scale, you're going to be able to produce cars that are 30 grand. And I think one of the most important things about why people are buying these is not just because they're cheap. It's because they come with, as far as I'm aware, a 7-year unlimited kilometer warranty. And that is what is largely going to sell this car, because for too long, even with prestige cars, people have had to put up with a 3-year, whatever, you know, 3-year warranty with 100,000 kilometers or something like that. And I think the market really demands a bare minimum of a 5-year warranty for a day-to-day vehicle that they own. This car needs to be serviced every 10,000 Ks, unlike, say, my Toyota Corolla, which is 15,000. I would say that that's the case because being a small turbo engine, it's going to need a little bit more maintenance. It's going to be under a bit more stress trying to push this little SUV around. Reliability, I have not had a huge amount of research into this, but I can tell you that with this car, which has had 10,000 Ks on it, a bit over 10,000 kilometers on it, and bought only a few months ago, they had no cars available as courtesy cars for when the front screen was going to be replaced, which is interesting. Does that mean that they've got so many courtesy cars that they're needing to give out for cars that have issues? I'm not entirely sure. So certainly got some get up and go. Like, I would not say that this is a slow car. It's definitely like, I've driven cars of this nature that were much slower than this. On the website, Chery doesn't give a 0 to 100 test. I could maybe do that at another point today, but it's definitely not slow for what it is and for how small the engine is. Speaking though of the performance, I think people who buy this sort of car, they are going to be, or you're going to be, and I am with these sorts of cars, worried about fuel consumption. Because when you've got a small engine which is just churning out revs, it often will drink fuel. 6.9 litres is what Chery has advised as possible for the fuel consumption. I can tell you for the last 1,350 kilometers, I averaged 8.8 and now currently 9, because I've been putting the foot down a little bit to see how nippy this thing is. Right. I mean, the roll in the corners, it's not terrible. I think it's perfectly acceptable, but I do think when you drive, say, the Corolla Cross, they do handle the road better, undeniably, but they are like a Corolla Cross of this sort of size, sub SUV would be, what, 30% more expensive? I think they're at least 40 grand and this one's 31. So yeah, like that's a massive difference in price. So what's my verdict on the little Chery Omoda? Well, I think it has, for this money, probably the best tech and performance for something in its class. It also comes with a 7-year warranty, though it certainly lacks some quality in parts of its interior and parts of the way it drives and part of the way that it is suspended on broken roads here in Australia. But I think if you're looking for something which you just need for work that you can get on some cheap finance and get from A to B, I certainly don't think it's a poor choice. This is Driver 88. I'll see you next time.